Before dying, you must first die. To realize that you are life itself, you must let rid of the idea that you have an existence. Since once you start down this path, it is by far the most spiritually transformative experience. I truly enjoy talking about it. Being reborn, then losing your identity. If you are currently on a journey, I hope that this film will help you better understand what is happening at each stage and what to expect when you get at the rebirth stage. Therefore, your character starts to write as soon as we are born. When you make contact with the air, its narrative starts. You are assigned a name in this realm. You are conditioned and essentially trained in your environment from birth. You will be told what to think and how to think, and these influences will shape who you become. You are the cause of it. As we mature, we learn to communicate with others. With these aspirations, emotions, and convictions, all of these identities that we assert to be who we are as individuals. If I were to ask you to define yourself, we would also come to understand that most of us identify with my own narrative of who I am. Every single item you say is subject to change at any time, or acknowledge that whatever you say is merely a part of the narrative that is tied to you. Ego is not the real you. My spiritual journey is unquestionably the most significant component of my life. The most terrible yet beautiful experience someone can go through, in my opinion, because everything you've ever believed about yourself starts to crumble as a result of this. Your preconceived notions were false, and this process is really about letting go. The ego is what keeps these stories together, and it is both learning and unlearning things. Your ego will start to lose those attachments because it truly thinks you will. You will pass away if you let certain things happen to you. The reason for the strong opposition is this. This is why people think it's so hard to change during this journey. It's because the ego wants to maintain control and believe that it is genuine. It doesn't want to die. It wants to be you, just like Pinocchio did. It wants to be who you are. It aspires to exist as a genuine being. Nevertheless, if you ask what the ego is, you'll discover that the idea of an ego isn't even real because there isn't a thinker. Nobody is present to assume responsibility of thoughts. Thoughts simply occur, and the attachment to them produces the false impression that you are those thoughts and the fact that you are doing so. Therefore, you now have a feel of what I'm thinking, but the ego is simply one side of the coin. When someone says, kill your ego, they are not referring to genuinely eliminating it so that it disappears because it is impossible to do so. It's more about disassociating from it so that you are no longer under its influence. The ego will finally settle after that. You can now live in harmony after you calm down and recognize that it no longer has control. It's crucial to die before you die. Definitely if you have had significant hardship in the past or are now experiencing it since. During this process, you really start to see everything for what it truly is. Just now, without any thoughts, ask yourself, what else is there without categorizing and evaluating everything that is still there, without attempting to produce what you believe? You can't fully experience what I'm pointing to with any phrase. No, this moment should feel or seem like what's left. Look about you. If words or responses are accurate, what's left is what is. There is only this, it is what it is. And this is what happens when letting go of things like fear, worry, despair, etc. What you need to understand is that everything you've been told is false. It's all just another mind-made myth. Take note of how, when you are dealing with one of those so-called issues, use let's fear as an example because it is genuinely what is beneath every feeling. So that feeling in my chest and terror increased. It seems like those predictions of what might occur start going through the head, and at this point, you are caught in a mental delusion, because what you think is occurring isn't even what you think is happening. How can I love a spider and hold it in my hand, but when you're near one, you stress out and immediately go into fight or flight, start sweating, and you start experiencing flashbacks. The only difference between us is what's happening within our heads. You're so afraid of Spider-Man movies that you can't even watch them. Thoughts and emotions are reacting very differently from how I am. But if you remove the resistance to the fear-based thoughts and feelings and step back to view what is really going on, you will notice that, well, there is energy vibrating in my chest, but it isn't harming me. It's simply that energy and thinking are also happening, which isn't really a negative thing. Yet nobody is experiencing this. It is simply a fact. There is no need to accept the stories as true or to assign label. Those unpleasant feelings are awful. These are the stories you just let go of because it's all just energy. One must sacrifice their life for these things, and you birth into truth for you. What you believe about yourself is just a tale. You don't experience worry, take away the labels and stories to see what is left. It is just things happening, and they are happening to nobody. You don't have fear, and you're not depressed, because these things aren't who you are. You don't need to assert them in order to be who you are. You are aware of what's happening and realize that your body is not who you think it is, not the mind those things are created from, but they do not represent who you are. Once you pass away, it will hurt. Cannot flee the suffering that we can flee. This death will seem like your fault, I'm sure. It's true that everything in reality has been destroyed, and it's acceptable if you start grieving the previous version of yourself. You can experience a period of seclusion. The universe has been preparing you for your rebirth for a while. It's time to face reality. It's time to live in reality instead of these lies. And mental restrictions for you are without end and without bounds. Energy, anything and everyone about you. We are all the one and only when we act as a whole. There is never a separation from God. Another illusion is that life is what you are. You don't have a body. Without you, life would not exist. Without you, there is no experience. There is no human nature, no human character. Everything is within us. It does not exist outside of ourselves. You are not a part of this universe. It is you. These things I'm saying will be so obvious once you're resurrected. And the ironic thing about everything is that we have all always been like this. We have never been what we all believed it to be. What were you before the world started telling you who you are?